Okay, always happens when people chant the first two lines of these two verses, they always chant it softly. As soon as it gets to the word Indriyani, they start chanting it louder. Guruji always says that verses 8 and 9 of the 5th chapter are the biggest tongue twisters, particularly when you say the verses line by line. And it's been proved that if you can speak Sanskrit clearly, then you'll be able to speak any language in the world clearly. Because when one can pronounce words in Sanskrit, they can pronounce words in other languages very clearly. So Shri Krishna says, the man who is united with the divine and knows the truth thinks that I do nothing at all, for in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting, walking, sleeping, breathing, in speaking, emitting, grasping, opening and closing the eyes, he holds that the senses, only the senses, are occupied with the objects of sense. So Shri Krishna says that yogi who is united with the divine and knows the truth thinks that only everything he does is just the senses being occupied with the objects of the senses. Because of this, he thinks that I do nothing at all. And this is very true. Look how clear Shri Krishna is. All the actions of life are taking place. All the actions have been described here. He's not saying no to actions and to doing the daily things in life. He's showing us how to perform actions excellently. How can one give up actions? One cannot give up actions. This is the means to performing actions excellently. A person is performing all the actions of life, yet he's doing nothing because he knows that just the senses are occupied with the objects of the senses. It's very straightforward. Imagine that someone is sitting on a chair in the morning outside reading a newspaper. You don't do it outside so much in the UK, but in India, she keeps turning the pages of the newspaper. She finishes reading one page and then starts reading another. After a while, it starts getting hot and her skin starts sweating. She therefore goes back into her house and gets herself a glass of water from the fridge. The person here described performs all the actions of life with the same straightforwardness and the same naturalness with which this person performed all these actions. At this time, such a person is not an enemy of herself, nor is she an enemy of her senses. On the majority of occasions, when we hear the word yogi or samyasi, they immediately think that they're going to give difficulties to the body and they must be doing the opposite of what their mind wishes. It's not like that. Shri Krishna says here that such a person does everything straightforwardly and well, but she keeps herself keeps a distance from the things that she does. Therefore, there's no enmity with the body. When one reaches a state where he knows that she resides in her body, then her body becomes the temple. Okay, Srimad Adi Shankaracharya says in the Shiv Manas Puja, very important shlok, is Atmanam Girijamati Shachara Prana Shariram Gruham Pujayate Vishayoga Papoka Tarachana Indriya Samadhishtiti Sacha Parogog Padakshini Vidhi Srotani Stota Vahido Yadyat Karma Karomita Takhilam Shambhota Varatanam. Note this down. It says, translation is, God, everything I do is in adoration of you, because he's talking to Shivji. He says, you are my soul, my intellect is Parvati, who is the wife of Shivji. The 5 parts of my breath, the 5 parts of our breath are called Prana, Apana, Vyana, Udanaya, Samanaya, are the 5 faces of Shiva. My body is your temple. My enjoyment of material objects is my worship of you, because you have blessed me with these things because of my good deeds, and I have not forgotten you while I'm enjoying them, and therefore my enjoyment of these things brings me closer to you. When I go to sleep, then I attain the divine state, because I remember you before going to sleep, and when waking up, then therefore the time I spend sleeping must be in your remembrance, or the divine state. Whenever I step anywhere, I'm doing a pilgrimage, because you're omnipresent, you are everywhere, and I know that you reside in all the places where I step. Therefore each step of mine brings me closer to you. And then everything I say is in praise of you, because I say it for you. This is because everything I say brings people closer to you. I give your thoughts to everyone, and remembering this one thing, I make everyone's life pure. Therefore everything I say is in praise of you. Whatever works I perform is in adoration of you and in worship of you. Repeat again, those writing down. God, everything I do is in adoration of you, because you, Shivji, are my soul, My intellect is Parvati. The 5 parts of my breath are the 5 faces of Shiva. My body is your temple. My enjoyment of material objects is my worship of you. When I go to sleep, then I attain the divine state, because I remember you before going to sleep and waking up, and therefore the time in the middle with sleep is a remembrance of you. Whenever I step, I'm doing a pilgrimage of you, because you're omnipresent. Everything I say is in praise of you, because I say it for you. Whatever works I perform are in adoration of you and a worship of you. This is the great state of Manasi worship, when one knows that God is the soul. You are Shiva, Satchinanda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. The body in which you reside is a temple. You must not cause harm to your body or get rid of your body. You must use your body, and you must use your body for good purposes. When the body is used for the wrong purposes, that's where the difficulty starts. The misuse begins here. You have to use your body. And you should not misuse the body. Your body is a temple. You need some place to reside. Our scriptures have never opposed the body, with verses 8 and 9. And if there's no opposition to the body, there's no opposition to the acts of the body. All things start with the body, because if there was no body, then how would you come? Just like a body resides in a house, so too does the soul reside in the body. The body is a place to reside. When we have sindoor, we have rice and flowers, so too is our material happiness a worship of God. I always say that Srimad Adi Shankaracharya's Shiv Manas Puja, verses 8 and 9, is a devotion of today. Today's human beings need this type of devotion, because we have a lot of devotion to objects. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya gives the correct meaning of devotion here. We only see devotion as preparing equipment, and we spend our devotional time in bathing 10 hours a day. We lose our devotion in preparing sweets and other tasty food. Swami Vivekananda was once abroad, and a foreigner told him that if India has such a rich culture and Indian thoughts are so great, then look what's happening in India right now. The foreigner told him, how can he come abroad and preach like this? The foreigner said that if India has such a great religion, then yet there's no development in India, and people are living sheepish lives where they must be 40 or 50 years of age and called religious, yet doing nothing in their lives. Why is this the case? Swami Vivekananda gave his reply in just one sentence. What do you think it was? Why is there no development in India, even though we've got such great thoughts, such rich thoughts?
Is it corruption?
Corruption. Before that, the more root of that.
Greediness?
Yeah, kind of. He said, reply in one sentence, said the religion of India has become stuck in the kitchen and the bathroom. It's become stuck in the kitchen and the bathroom. This is the difficulty. Such great and beautiful thoughts. The body should be pure and clean. But what happens is that as soon as someone touches a certain person, they say they have to have a bath. If someone does something to someone, then they need to have a bath. Our religion has been stuck in the bathroom. And then the kitchen. People spend so much time preparing the correct food 5 times a day, then when they do this, they're called religious. They say that nobody can do the service and worship like they can. Swami Vivekananda was so true. The religion of his country was stuck in the bathroom and the kitchen. We have to take religion out of this. Consuming material objects and enjoying material pleasures should be like a worship of God. People should be grateful to God for the material objects they have. God gave them a nice house in which to live, as well as all the main comforts. One gets a lot of peace of mind because of this, and that is why they're able to come back to God over and over again. The objects are not bad, and one should not give up objects, nor should they destroy them. One must only change their way of viewing the world, because the majority of people in this world are suppressed. Inside, they want the material objects, but on the outside, they keep saying no. This is a split personality. A person sitting in a 7,000 square feet mansion and saying it's just a village hut. It's not a village hut, but it's a mansion. A true devotee says that everything belongs to God. Even when one goes to sleep, he attains samadhi. There's a very nice bhajan that goes, Aakh mari ugretya Shri Ram dekhu. When I close my eyes and I see Sitaram, because one can see Sitaram when his eyes are open. Siaram me chab saba jagajani choru kana pranam jurabani. One can see God in everything in the world, but when his eyes are closed, then he also has samadhi, because the divine state, because God is inside him as well. Hindi poet saints say it very nicely that Balkoki kari rotli piya ko liya rasai, meaning I can see God outside, but even when I close my eyes, I have created a throne for God inside. A person should remember God when he goes to sleep. Such a person doesn't think about material objects when he goes to sleep, but thinks about God. He attains samadhi in his sleep because his last thought before going to sleep is of God, and the first thought after waking up is also of God. It's very natural that if the last thought before going to sleep is of God, and the first thought after waking up is of God, then God will surely be there in the middle. In India, teachers at schools get 1.5 months vacation on the condition that they must be at school on the first day back after vacation, and also they must be there at school on the last day of the term. If the teachers are there at school on those 2 particular days and sign off, then they get the entire vacation paid. It is presumed that they were there for the whole year at school. But if they're not there on one of these 2 days, then the holiday pay will get cut. Only those teachers that are at school will understand this. Guruji really likes this. If the teacher is there on the last and the first days, then the whole vacation is paid. It's the same thing for night time in our lives. When the day finishes, then we take a vacation, which is the night. If one has remembered God in the last moment of his day, and also the first moment of the next day, then God, who is the school principal, will give him the pay that God will be his for the whole night. Whatever next thing that Srimad Adi Shankaracharya says, wherever one steps should be a pilgrimage. This is because wherever he is going outside the house, he should be asking himself why he is going outside the house. When he's inside the house, then he asks himself when is he going. Even when he goes outside the house, then he should ask himself why is he going. Then when he comes back home after having went everywhere, he asks himself again whether he has done God's work. That is why he has gone outside his house. He has not gone outside the house for himself, but for God, and he has therefore completed a pilgrimage. We worship the feet of a person who walks around like this. The dust from his feet become an oblation because his feet keep doing a pilgrimage of God. He has gone outside the house for God and then has completed his pilgrimage. It's a very nice thing that only the dust from a person's feet becomes an oblation in this. That is why people touch onto the eyes. If dust comes from anywhere else in the body, then one does not make an oblation out of it, no matter how great the person is. No matter how much saint is one that takes dust off his cheek, that's not an oblation. Either does taking dust from his hands an oblation. This is because dust of someone's cheek is better than the dust of someone's feet. Yet the dust of someone's feet becomes an oblation because the person has performed the pilgrimage. Wherever his feet stop is the holy city of Kashi. This is the majesty of feet. We go to holy places for pilgrimage because wherever a holy person stops becomes a place of pilgrimage. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji, whose verse we're studying, travelled throughout the whole of India. Everywhere he stepped became a place of pilgrimage. Wherever Srimad Vallabhacharya gave a discourse on the Srimad Bhagavat, those places became purified. When you read a list of those places, you won't even know where most of them were. There was nothing there, but a great personality goes there and it becomes a place of worship. Everything you say should be for God, and you should not open your mouth for anyone else. Therefore, everything that you say is a shlok, a verse. You say everything for God, and God is the reason that you speak. You speak because God will like it when you speak. And you speak so that people can belong to God. Apart from that, you have no other reason. Your words become shloks, verses. Whatever works you should perform should always also be an adoration of God and a worship of God. All the elements of this verse from the Gita have been included in Srimad Adi Shankaracharya's Shiv Manas Puja. Seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting, walking, sleeping, breathing, speaking, emitting, grasping, and opening and closing the eyes. Therefore, everything you do can be an adoration of God and a worship of God. Each word is of major importance. A person who is a Samkhya yogi, a person on the path of knowledge, an introvert, thinks that he does nothing at all when he performs works. There was a very nice thinker by the name of Muni Rupchandji who said that there's no meaning in stopping the performance of the works of the body, nor is there any meaning in giving difficulty to the body. He said सतो नहीं तंको चिंतन को बदलो मत मारो इसे बुक्का जीवन को बदलो दुश्मन नहीं हमारे साधकना मंदिर है प्रभु का इसलिए मन को बदलो meaning do not bother your body just change your thoughts do not kill your body by starving it just change your life it's not an enemy of your well-being but a temple of God and that's why you should change your mind. I repeat again, do not bother your body just change your thoughts. Do not kill your body by starving it, just change your life. Your body is not an enemy of your well-being, but a temple of God, and that's why you should change your mind. We have given the name Gita Chintan Mala. We want to change our lives, and that is why we do Chintan or contemplation. Why should you hurt your own body? You should make efforts to change your mind. Change your thoughts, change your life, and change your mind. Only then does your life become divine. There are three ways of reaching the state where you think that you're doing nothing at all. The first way is in thinking that you are nothing. This is not through powerlessness, but through understanding. This was the way of Buddha and Mahavir of the Jain religion. Mahavir even reached the state where there was no soul. If you are nothing, then you cannot do anything. The second way is in thinking that whatever you do is being done by God. This is the path of destiny and predestination. Even a leaf will not move without God's wish. Everything is being done by God. But the greatest way is a third way. The path of Sri Krishna states that you cannot say that you are nothing because you're there. A person that's been around for 80 years knows that he exists. Also, you cannot say that everything is being done by God because then you become powerless. A person could just sit around and do nothing. Shri Krishna has given us a very beautiful combination that God is sitting inside us and making us perform the actions. This is the way of Shri Krishna. You are there and God is sitting inside you and making you do everything. You are there but you're not doing anything and therefore you will have no egotism. At the same time, God is making you do everything. You're definitely doing it, you have pride in doing it, and you become the means and the instrument of God. That is why you have pride. You do not say that you're not there, or you say that God does everything. You say that God resides in you and makes you do everything. When a person does this, then they reach the state described in this verse, when they do nothing at all, when they perform all the actions of life. They're not doing it, God is doing it. It's verses 8 and 9. It's a means of God. Then they attain this devotion where he is the means. This is a great practice. A person is performing actions and yet no egotism arises in him. If God is residing within you and making you do everything, then whatever you see will be for God. The only thing you want to see is God. The only thing you want to hear is God. Ek bar kaho Tulsidas mera. Just say once that Tulsidas is mine. If one reaches a state, then the whole life changes. The actions of all the senses described in these two verses become sublimated. You have to perform the actions. What do you wish to touch? You wish to touch God, and through your organ of the skin, you wish to feel the touch of God. You know that God touches you, but you cannot experience this touch. What is the touch of God? The poet Suresh Dalal has said it very beautifully when describing who God is. Meaning saying, Jwala mukhi na shikar upar betohu ane mari bhitar chandano lep kariye kare to maro ishwar che. Meaning, if I am touching the top of a flaming fire and someone touches to me with sandalwood to cool me down, that someone is my God. Repeat again. If I'm touching the top of a flaming fire and someone touches me with sandalwood to cool me down, that someone is my God. God always gives us that cooling sandalwood. Life is like a flaming fire and there's difficulties at every step. There are so many difficulties, yet a person feels coolness on his body. Who gives this coolness? That is your God. God keeps giving you this cooling sandalwood, but you just do not know it. You want to attain the touch of God. One also wishes to smell God. You have all the actions of life as described in these two verses. Even when you sit down to eat, you're not eating because you know that Shri Krishna says later in the Gita, saying, Aham Vaishvano Bhutva Prarina Mohamashrita Prana Pranasat Yukta Pashyamane Vichulyata, meaning God is a fire residing within you. Therefore, when you eat, you're not satisfying your appetite, but giving melted butter as oblation in the fire inside you. Therefore, when you sit down to eat, what thoughts should you have? You should not eat what you like, but what your God likes. When this happens, then by itself, you stop eating the foods that you should not be eating, and you stop drinking the drinks that you should not be drinking, because your God will not like it. It's such a nice concept to have this dedication. You can use everything you have as part of this dedication. If one keeps this one principle in their life, then the whole life will become wonderful. All the things that come into your life should be dedicated to God. Something has come into your house, and therefore you will use it for God. Whenever new clothes come to your house, then you can go to your Ishtadev, your personal God, and offer it to him or her. You tell them that you've got new clothes, and you give them to God to wear for 2 days. If you've got new food, then you can offer it to God first. If there is food you should not buy, then you stop from buying it, because you will not be able to offer it to God. It will not even come inside your house. If it doesn't come inside your house, then it will not even come inside your body. A lot of people do things outside the house that they would not do inside the house. If there is a God residing in your house, there's also a God residing in your body. Will you be able to dedicate yourself to him? If one performs every actions of his for God, then a person reaches a state where it says in this verse, where they perform actions, yet they do nothing at all. This is a very great state to reach. What state do they reach? Shri Krishna said, Guna Guneshu Vartante. What does that mean? Who remembers from chapter 3? It said this in 18th verse of the 3rd chapter of the Gita. What does Guna Guneshu Vartante mean? Just the modes of nature acting on the modes. He said, in this world he has no interest whatever to gain by the actions he has done, and none to be gained by the actions that he has not done. He does not depend on all these beings for any interest of his. I repeat again. In this world, he has no interest whatever to gain by the actions he has done, and none to be gained by the actions he has not done. He does not depend on all these beings for any interest of his. In this verse, he says the same thing. Indirani Indiranushu Vartante. First he said Guna Guneshu Vartante. He says Indriyani Indriyanashu Vartante, meaning the senses are making contact with the objects of sense, but you're far away from that. If a person is sitting on a horse, then rests at midday, then the horse will keep walking around eating grass. The person realizes the reason for which the horse eats the grass and knows that it will benefit him as well as the horse is because if the horse eats the grass, then the horse's strength increases, then he'll be able to sit on the horse and he'll be able to continue his journey. But if the person realizes that the train is not good and that the horse is eating something wrong, then the person will stop the horse, otherwise the horse will suffer a detriment and the journey would be ruined. In the same way, it is not him that's acting, but it's the senses that are making contact with the objects of sense. The body is like the horse. The senses go after the objects. A person that is a yogi is a person sitting on a horse watching all of this and checks whether the objects are good or not. If the objects are good, then there is no problem, but if the objects are bad, then he stops the body so he too can have a nice journey. On its own, the person has a sense of being a witness to life. Okay, verse 10.